Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. It is the 1st of February 2024 and it's been 3 years since the military seized absolute power in Myanmar. It's been 3 years since the military junta ousted the democratically elected government and stripped the civilian leaders of their power. It's been 3 years of civil war, military crackdown and violence against civilians. And 3 years later, there is still no light at the end of the tunnel. On the eve of the coup anniversary, Myanmar's army chief, Min Aung Hlaing, extended the emergency rule, vowing to crush all dissent. The move came as the military junta battles to contain a bloody pro-democracy rebellion that has severely tested its ability to govern the country. Min Aung Hlaing, who led the coup in 2021, said that the military would do whatever it takes to bring stability to the country. The military has continuously extended the emergency rule, in fact, since it seized power. But now it is facing its biggest challenge yet. An alliance of anti-coup forces as well as armed ethnic groups have made advances in their fight to overturn the military coup. Unlike the past, the people of Myanmar are challenging the coup with historic defiance and organization. The military junta today faces the wrath of not just the ethnic minorities, but also the ethnic majority. Since October, 3 powerful armed groups have launched coordinated offensives against the junta. In the northern regions of the country, the military is reportedly struggling to keep up, so much so that entire battalions have surrendered without a fight. And what's more, the military has lost large parts of the territory to the revolutionary forces. These anti-junta groups have successfully taken over various military posts and towns. 2 weeks ago, ethnic armed groups seized key towns in Rakhine State. This was a big setback for the military, but its losses are not limited to the battlefield. The junta's allies have started abandoning the State Administration Council. The military chief is also facing opposition within. Multiple reports talk about the discontent that is rising up the ranks. They are calling Min Aung Hlaing the worst leader in history. Officers in the Myanmar military, speaking to media outlets on condition of anonymity, talk about the humiliating defeats in towns and crossings. This is why the junta extends its military rule. The youth are leading the pro-democracy uprising. It is allied with a shadow government and other ethnic minority armies. These anti-coup groups have seriously dented the military's battlefield credibility. After 3 years, the revolution, as they say, is stronger than ever. The military labels these groups terrorists to curb them. The military junta has deployed heavy artillery and fighter jets. And let's not forget the human cost of all of this. Since the coup, at least 4,468 civilians have lost their lives. 2.3 million people have been internally displaced. Nearly 20,000 people have been jailed on political grounds. There have been mass killings. Entire villages have been burned to the ground. There have been airstrikes on civilians and violence across 106 townships. The United Nations, as well as the human rights groups, have accused the military generals of human rights abuses, including crimes against humanity. The military junta are saying they want stability, yet they refuse to negotiate with the ethnic groups. Efforts by Myanmar's neighbors to initiate talks have also seen no progress, by the way. In the year 2021, the junta had overthrown democracy, citing unaddressed electoral irregularities. It was just a few months after a landslide poll victory for the Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi. Her party had planned to change the constitution, cut the military out of politics, and bring it under civilian rule. That dream basically was shattered when the military abruptly snatched power, ending a decade of democracy and economic reforms. They say that they will hold elections soon and return Myanmar to quasi-civilian system, but it has disbanded 40 political parties. Aung San Suu Kyi has been jailed for 33 years. When the junta announced the extension of its rule yesterday, it vowed to ease the registration requirements for the political parties, but no time frame for the election was given. Western countries have signaled, though, they will not recognize the polls. The parallel national unity government, which controls all these militias, issued a statement along with 3 ethnic minority rebel groups. They say they are open to negotiations with the military, but talks are contingent on the military junta ceding power and bringing the armed forces under civilian control. If we were to read the tea leaves, we would say that the Myanmar military's hold on power looks more uncertain than at any time in the last 60 years. Shifting our focus now to India. Earlier today, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the interim budget. This was the 6th budget presented by the current Finance Minister and the last one of Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government's second term. So what were the key takeaways? What were the top announcements? The Finance Minister announced several initiatives which are aimed at transforming several sectors of the economy like tourism, education, agriculture, food processing. Let's just now take a look at the key announcements and the highlights. To start with, the Finance Minister proposed no changes in the direct and indirect tax, including import tax. However, the government plans to withdraw the old disputed direct tax demand with the limit set at up to 25,000 rupees for issues up to financial year 2010 and up to 10,000 rupees for financial years 2011 to 2015. This will reportedly benefit around 1 crore taxpayers. Next, the Finance Minister announced that the scheme to provide 50-year interest-free loans to states will be continued. The total outlay for this scheme will be 1.3 lakh crores. This has been done under the government's Gati Shakti Master Plan. Now, for the unversed, the Gati Shakti Master Plan is a pet project of Prime Minister Modi. It is aimed at holistic policy making for 7 infrastructure subsectors and promoting tourism in all Indian states. This year, special focus will be given to Lakshadweep. Next, the Finance Minister announced that around 1 crore households will be able to obtain 300 units of free electricity every month. The expected benefits will be given under the rooftop solarization plan. They will help households save 15,000 to 18,000 rupees from free solar electricity. Next, the Finance Minister announced the extension of the healthcare cover under Ayushman Bharat for all ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers and helpers. There was no specific budget allocation in this regard, but in the last budget, the Finance Minister had earmarked 7,200 crore rupees for financial year 24, and this year, the scope of the scheme has been expanded. Next, the Finance Minister announced a plan to modernize the Indian railways. And under this plan, around 40,000 standard rail bogies will be converted to Vande Bharat standards. This initiative aims to elevate the safety, convenience and comfort of rail travel. It also provides a boost to private sector railway manufacturers through new refurbishment contracts. Next, the Finance Minister announced steps for value addition in the agricultural sector and boosting the farmers' income. She promised to further promote private and public investment in post-harvest activities like aggregation, modern storage, efficient supply chains and processing. This will be done under the Prime Minister Kisan Samman Yojana, which will provide direct financial assistance to 11.8 crore farmers. The Finance Minister also announced free vaccination for girls with cervical cancer, especially in the 9 to 14 age group. According to the National Library of Medicine in India, cervical cancer contributes to approximately 6% to 29% of all cancers in women. And to combat this, the Finance Minister said that various schemes will be brought under one comprehensive program for synergy in implementation. The next big announcement was in the field of technology. The Finance Minister announced a corpus of 1 lakh crore with a 50-year interest-free loan. This corpus will basically provide long-term financing or refinancing with long tenors and low or nil interest rates. This will encourage the private sector to scale up research and innovation significantly. These were just 8 big announcements. There were many more. Overall, the Finance Minister's budget speech showcased the government's confidence in returning to power in the general election based on its track record and not freebies. The Indian digital payment app Paytm has come under fire. India's central bank has slapped restrictions on Paytm. What exactly are these restrictions? When will they come into play? How will they affect you? Should you be worried? Let's unpack all of this and more. The Reserve Bank of India has imposed curbs on Paytm Payments Bank Limited. After February 29th, the payments bank will no longer be able to operate its mobile wallet. It has also been barred from taking further deposits, credit transactions or top-ups. This applies to all customer accounts, prepaid instruments, wallets, FASTags or national common mobility cards. However, the users will still be able to withdraw or use their balances in these accounts without restrictions. Now, what exactly is the Paytm Payment Bank? Does it have anything to do with your everyday UPI payments? In simple terms, the Paytm Payment Bank is a virtual bank where you can open a savings account. You can hold up to 2 lakh rupees in this account. You can also get a digital debit card, get interest on your savings, and even open a fixed deposit. Users don't even need to maintain a minimum balance. For years, millions of Indians have been enjoying the benefits of the Paytm Payment Bank from the convenience of their mobile phones without the hassle of any paperwork, but not anymore. The payment bank's operations have been largely restricted. Most importantly, users will not be able to transfer funds or make UPI payments. Now, let's be clear. The curbs are only for Paytm Payment Bank accounts. The UPI payments on Paytm app will not be affected because they will be done using different bank accounts. So, should you be worried? If you are someone who uses a Paytm Payment Bank account regularly, then yes, you will not be able to deposit more funds or even transfer them. So, what options will you have as a user? Paytm says it will transfer all Paytm Payments Bank accounts to other banks. And how long will that take? How seamless would that process be? We don't know, only time will tell. Users can still look for alternatives for personal use. But what about the merchants? You know, the vegetable sellers, the street vendors, the shopkeepers. What happens when these merchants will be asked to move their accounts from the Paytm Payment Bank to some other one? Won't Paytm lose the credibility and confidence that it has enjoyed for years? One of Paytm's strengths has been its strong relationship with merchants. It was cemented via many products and services Paytm offers with in-house banking. But that will now be gone. How will Paytm convince its merchants to link another bank account to their UPI address instead of the Paytm payment bank account? And even if some of the merchants agree to do so, they may also have to change their QR codes. They will have to get new QR codes and paste them on their soundbox devices. Yes, the ones that you see at payment counters every day. Isn't all of this going to be a hassle? Is it more likely that they turn away from Paytm altogether? There are, after all, plenty of other options out there in the market, like Google Pay, Phone Pay, Bheem UPI. Now, how and why did things reach this point? The RBI says it had warned the platform well in advance. In March 2022, it asked the Paytm Payments Bank to stop adding new customers, but according to audit reports, Paytm did not pay any heed to the warnings. There were persistent non-compliance and supervisory concerns. And 2 years on, the Paytm Payments Bank is facing the consequences. How badly is it going to be affected is the question. In the worst case scenario, the company expects to lose 500 crore rupees in its annual earnings. That is some $60.2 million. The effect is already visible as far as the stock market is concerned, by the way. Paytm stocks plunged 20%. What comes next? Will Paytm survive this nightmare? And we have some breaking inputs coming in right this minute. The US State Department has approved a possible foreign military sale of the MQ-9B remotely piloted aircraft to the Indian government. That's the news that's just coming in. What we also know is that it has also approved the sale of related equipment for an estimated cost of $3.99 billion. Now, the official notification is out. And according to it, the Defense Security Cooperation Agency delivered the required certification notifying the US Congress of this possible sale earlier today. And what we also know is that this proposed sale will support the foreign policy and the national security objectives of the US by helping strengthen the US-India strategic relationship. And it will also improve India's capability to meet the current and future threats in the Indo-Pacific. And with me on the broadcast is my colleague Siddhant Sibal over the phone line. Siddhant, what more can you tell us now about the announcement? It also comes as a huge boost to that relationship between India and the US.
Well, in last 24 hours, there's a lot of confusion over media reports saying that this drone deal might be linked to, of course, the developments over the Pannun case. Now, essentially, with this notification, those speculative reports died a natural death. And essentially what has happened in last 15 to 20 minutes is that the U.S. government, which is the U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency, has formally notified the U.S. Congress on the possibility of the sale. That is a big green signal by the U.S. government that it is behind this drone deal, despite the irritants which we have seen in India-U.S. relationship. And essentially, if you go through the entire notification, the release that has been issued by the U.S. government, it talks about that how this sale is important for the American foreign policy and national security objectives. And the basic focus of this drone deal is to strengthen India-US relationship, to improve the security of its major defense partner, that is India, and that will lead to a much more important political stability in the Indo-Pacific and the South Asian region. Essentially, the entire details have been listed out in the release that has been issued, and the estimated cost has been around $3.99 billion US dollar. That is the price. This is the official first time that this kind of price has been released. And so far, we had only seen the reports. And this deal came about during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the United States last year. And since then, the works were going on. Basically, India is expected to get 31 of these Predator drones from the Americans, of which the three services, the Indian Navy, Indian Army and the Indian Air Force will get its share of the drones, which are important for India's security as well. We also have seen reactions coming from both the U.S. State Department in the last 24 hours or because of those reports, basically talking about that the Congress will play an important role and basically there will be consultations. India, of course, the MEA spokesperson earlier today talked about that India respects the internal processes because we need to understand in democracy there are traditions and processes in each democracy like India has, the Americans have. When it comes to defense deals in United States, they need to keep the U.S. Congress in the loop. And this is something that was awaited. So a formal notification by the U.S. government and a clear signal that it is behind this deal, despite, of course, certain irritants in the India-U.S. relationship.
Right. We're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much, Siddhant, for getting us those details. So that's a crucial takeaway and that announcement that's been made now. And as Siddhant was pointing out, putting to rest all that speculation, the U.S. State Department has approved a possible foreign military sale of the MQ-9B remotely piloted aircraft to the Indian government, also approving the sale of related equipment for an estimated cost of $3.99 billion. And that official notification is now out. And for our next story, I want you to take a look at this first.
I'm sorry for everything that you've all been through. It's terrible. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered.
That's Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg apologizing. Now, there is nothing new about it. He has apologized over and over. Years have changed, but what has not changed is Mark Zuckerberg's sorry state. Also, Meta's policies to safeguard children. What I just showed you was the latest addition to Zuckerberg's endless list of apologies. This one came after an hours-long grilling session at a US Senate hearing. Zuckerberg was faced with tough questions, and he did not have any answers for most of them. Just have a look at how the entire scene played out.
37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 were exposed to unwanted nudity in a week on Instagram. You knew about it. Who did you fire?
Senator, this is why we're building all
Who did you fire?
Tools. Senator, I don't think that's...
Who did you fire?
I'm not going to answer that.
Because you didn't fire anybody, right? You didn't take any significant action.
It's appropriate to talk about like
it's not
individual
appropriate.
HR decisions.
Do you know who's sitting behind you? You've got families from across the nation whose children are either severely harmed or gone, and you don't think it's appropriate to talk about steps that you took? The fact that you didn't fire a single person? Let me ask you this. Have you compensated any of the victims?
Sorry?
Have you compensated any of the victims? These girls, have you compensated them?
I don't believe so.
Why not? Don't you think they deserve some compensation for what your platform has done?
Did you see what happened? As the senator said, 37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 fell prey to unwanted nudity in just a week on Instagram. Meta has become one of the largest marketplaces for predators and pedophiles globally. And when Zuckerberg was asked about this, he did not have much to say. As you could see in that clip, he was at a loss of words. All he could repeat was, Meta is working on tools to flag exploitative content. Has he fired those responsible? Has he taken any serious steps to safeguard teenagers on his social media platforms? Has he compensated the victims? You got your answer in Zuckerberg's silence and the worked-up demeanor. Meta faces very serious allegations. Some of them are Meta allegedly allows and fails to detect the trafficking of children, enables adults to find, message, and groom minors. Multiple reports have cited the Canadian Centre for Child Protection saying that a network of Instagram accounts with as many as 10 million followers each continued to live stream videos of child sex abuse, even months after it was reported to the company. Facebook's algorithms have helped build large Facebook groups that are devoted to trading child sexual abuse content. The list is long, I can keep going on. And it's not just Meta, TikTok, X, Discord also face similar allegations. Their bosses were also questioned by the Senate, along with Mark Zuckerberg, for almost 4 hours. They were basically told that they have blood on their hands. Listen to this.
Mr. Zuckerberg, you and the companies before us, I know you don't mean it to be so, but you have blood on your hands. You have a product. You have a product that's killing people. When we had cigarettes killing people, we did something about it, maybe not enough. You're going to talk about guns, we have the ATF. Nothing here. There's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. You can't be sued.
And there was another confrontational exchange, by the way. A senator pointed out that the child sex abuse does not exist in a dark corner of Instagram. It's very easily available just by a simple hashtag search. When users searched for it, they got a warning that the results may contain images of child sexual abuse. And despite the warning, they were given 2 choices. One, to get resources, and another to see results anyway. Can you believe that? What was Zuckerberg thinking when he gave the predators this option? What does he have to say for himself? Just listen to this.
All right, Senator. The basic science behind that is that when people are searching for something that is problematic, it's often helpful to, rather than just blocking it, to help direct them towards something that that could be helpful for getting them to get help.
In what, I understand, get resources. In what sane universe is there a link for see results anyway?
Well, because we might be wrong.
Just how infuriating is that? Are these social media bosses even taking anything seriously? I'm at a loss of words here. They run platforms that have become hubs of abuse and exploitation. Thousands of children have died. Those who survived have been traumatized for life. When these bosses are asked to take accountability, they shift the blame on parents. But there's only so much that parents can do. And who should be responsible for the conduct anyway? The user or the platform that is making millions and billions out of it? And we now shift our focus to Russia. Since the plane crash killed 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war last week, Russia has pointed the finger of blame on Ukraine. And today, Moscow has added more substance to its claim. After blaming Ukraine for killing its own soldiers, Russia claims that an American missile shot down the plane. In a statement released on Thursday, Russia's investigative committee confirmed the type of weapon that was used to shoot down that jet. According to the Russian investigative committee, Ukraine fired 2 missiles from a staging area in Kharkiv. This is not far from the village of Liptsy, located some 10 kilometers from the Russian border. And Russian officials said that during the investigation, they found 116 missile fragments with inscriptions in English. One of them read, "Confidential, classified by Patriot Security Classification Guide." Another piece of fragment reportedly read, "Raytheon." a reference to one of the makers of the American Patriot air defense systems. The Russian probe agency said that an extensive series of forensic tests found that composition of the explosives indicates they were most likely produced abroad. Remember, on the 24th of January, the Russian cargo plane carrying 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war crashed near the Russia-Ukraine border, killing everyone on board. It was by far the deadliest crash to take place inside Russian territory in the 2 years of war immediately after the crash. In fact, Russia accused Ukraine for downing that jet. Russian lawmakers said that 3 missiles, either American Patriot missiles or German-made Iris-Ts, were fired from Ukraine's Kharkiv region. Meanwhile, Ukraine stopped short of acknowledging that it downed the plane. Remember, we told you the plane crashed just northeast of Belgorod. And this region of Russia has been the target of frequent cross-border attacks by Ukraine. As the findings came out today, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova weighed in on the investigation. She said, and I'm quoting now, U.S. citizens must know where their money is going. The Kremlin official also accused the Biden administration of making ordinary Americans, quote-unquote, accessories to a bloody tragedy. These findings also come a day after President Vladimir Putin said that a US-made Patriot missile shot down the plane. In a televised appearance, Putin said, and I'm quoting, "The plane was shot down. It has already been established for certain by an American Patriot system. This has already been established by forensics." Putin had also called for an international investigation into the matter. However, he claimed there are no organizations willing to undertake the task. In previous statements, Ukrainian officials did not outrightly deny Russia's accusations. There have been questions on whether the plane even carried prisoners of war. Many in Ukraine have also questioned why Russia did not show any image of the dead bodies to back up its claims. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, also called for an international investigation into the crash, but he also said that since it took place over on the Russian side, investigation would likely be hampered. Even though both sides traded barbs, another round of prisoner swap did take place on Wednesday. It was the largest prisoners of war swap to date, with each side turning over 195 service members. This was the 50th prisoners of war swap since the war started in February 2022. Which brings me to the other battle that the world is fighting. Anxiety, trauma, existential dread. Let me ask you, when someone asks, "How are you doing?" how often do you answer that question honestly? Because if you did, no work would get done that day. Something similar happened. When everyone's favorite Muppet from Sesame Street, Elmo, asked an innocuous question on social media, Elmo asked, "How is everyone doing?" But you see, that simple question triggered a tsunami of angst. Netizens started trauma dumping on Elmo. The response was unanimous in a way. "We are not okay." Thousands replied, sharing feelings of dismay, distress, depression. One person wrote, "I'm at my lowest." Another wrote, "Elmo, I'm depressed and broke." Some even expressed gratitude. They were happy that someone wanted to know how they were doing. From celebrities to brands, it's like the entire world wanted to discuss their woes with Elmo. It started trending on Twitter. And as I speak, Elmo still is on the trending chart. The answer to Elmo's simple question was so resounding, it prompted a response from Elmo, which directed users towards mental health resources. Elmo highlighted just how important it is to ask a friend how they are doing. Even US President Joe Biden weighed in. He said, and I'm quoting, "I know how hard it is some days to sweep the clouds away and get to sunnier days." Our friend Elmo is right. We have to be there for each other, offer our help to a neighbor in need, and above all else, ask for help when we need it. Even though it's hard, you are never alone. Yes, some of the responses to Elmo's questions were just jokes, but there were some genuinely honest answers. We couldn't help but wonder, what does all of this say about the world we live in? Elmo's question lay bare just how widespread anxiety is. It's not surprising. The world is at war, multiple conflicts taking place simultaneously. Climate change is heating the world. Mental health crisis is claiming lives of young people. Add to that, the winter season has brought about seasonal depression. It begs the question, is the year 2024 going to be the year of depression? And our next story is about Rishi Sunak. The UK Prime Minister has been facing crises for a while now. His approval ratings are sinking. He had to battle his way to get the Rwanda bill passed. And at the same time, he has been fighting to fend off a plot by Tory rebels to bring him down. Let's focus on the plot to dethrone him. According to a new report, a fourth prime ministerial change of guard is being plotted. The plotters are Sunak's own Conservative Party colleagues. You heard that right. Colleagues who Sunak had outfoxed to become the Prime Minister. And they have now joined hands to remove him from office. This is all according to a report by the Times UK. What does the report say? That Sunak is being targeted by individuals linked to Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick and Jacob Rees-Mogg. Lawmakers loyal to these Tory leaders are apparently involved in a conspiracy to dethrone Rishi Sunak. And how big is this group? Who are its members? And will they succeed? Let's find out. Let me start off with the names. On top of the list is David Frost, the former Minister of State at the Cabinet Office. His name has been tied to an explosive YouGov poll, which was published in the Telegraph on the 14th of January. The poll had a gloom-laden analysis which shows that the Tories are on course to win just 169 seats in the general election. The poll was timed to inflict maximum damage on Sunak just before the House of Commons voted on the crucial Rwanda bill. In a recent interview, Frost revealed his involvement in commissioning the poll. And next, we have Simone Clarke and Rees-Mogg. They have apparently joined a right-wing Tory faction, a group of free-market, low-tax advocates, which aims to help shape the next Conservative manifesto. That is what they claim to be doing on the surface. Reports say there is suspicion that this group might make maneuvers for a fresh push against Sunak's leadership of the party. The suspicion basically stems from the kind of statements some of the leaders of this group have been making, like Simon Clarke. He has called upon Sunak to quit in order to avoid a catastrophe at the polls later this year. Writing in the Telegraph, he said that the Tories had lost key voters by failing to be bold on immigration. He further said that the only way Conservatives could win the next election is by keeping Sunak out of 10 Downing Street. And then we have Will Dry, a former advisor to Rishi Sunak. He is said to be working with a small cabal of ex-advisors to overthrow Sunak. In fact, right before a report came out on this rebellion, he made a statement saying the Tories were heading for the most almighty of defeats unless Rishi Sunak was replaced. And by the way, it's not just the Tory rebels who want to remove Sunak. There are also some wealthy businessmen who have donated significant sums of money to the party in the past. And this group of businessmen is known as the Midlands Industrial Council. The membership of this group is largely unknown, but the group is said to be funding polls and reports on getting Sunak out of office. The group is chaired by Johnny Leavesley, a Midlands-based businessman who has given hundreds of thousands of pounds to the Conservatives, as per reports. So, as this soap opera continues to play out, Sunak's authority over his party appears to be at risk of ebbing away. Are his days at 10 Downing Street numbered? They indeed seem to be. Even if the Tories win, many within the party seem to be in no mood to let Sunak run 10 Downing Street again. To have a long weekend every single week, to work for only 4 days and relax for the next 3. Now, does that sound like a dream? In most parts of the world, it's still far from reality, of course. But in Germany, the dream is finally coming true. That's right. Germany has joined the likes of the US, the UK, Portugal in piloting a shorter work week. The trial is going to last 6 months. It will include hundreds of employees across 45 participating companies. The program basically follows a 100-80-100 principle, which means participating companies stick to 100% pay in 80% of the time and aim to achieve 100% output. The plan is ambitious, but it's nothing that hasn't been done before. The 4-day work week, you see, has a reputation of yielding promising results in past trials. But for Germany, it is being rolled out at a rather tricky time. You see, the German labor market is facing a slew of pressures. The farmers are protesting. There is a shortage of skilled workers and sluggish economic growth. And in addition to that, there are fears of recession and soft global demand, which could cause a hiring freeze in the country through 2024. The debate surrounding working hours in Germany is a contentious one. As many as 73% of Germans are in favor of cutting the work week short while receiving the same wage. Will it work out in the economy's favor? That we will have to wait and watch. But one thing that is certain is it will work out in the employees' favor. Companies that have participated in 4-day week pilots have curbed burnout and sick days. They have also improved job retention. Some German companies involved in the project are looking to make similar strides in the workplace. Our next story is about the moon, the Earth's closest celestial neighbor. Turns out it's not as stable and solid as we think. According to a new study, the moon has been shrinking in size over the past 100 million years. And due to this, the celestial body is witnessing unprecedented moonquakes. The study in question has been conducted by scientists from NASA. It was published in the Planetary Science Journal on the 25th of January. Let me now take you through the key findings of that study. It says that the moon has shrunk over 150 feet in its circumference. The core of the moon has gradually cooled during the same period. The continuation of the shrinking process is leading to frequent moonquakes. These moonquakes could affect the landing sites of future lunar missions. But how and why is this shrinking even happening? And to understand that, we will first have to know a little bit about the composition of the moon itself. To start with, the moon is made up of several layers, just like an onion. The outermost layer is called the crust. It's about 50 kilometers thick. Beneath the crust is the mantle, which is about 1,000 kilometers thick. And right in the center of the moon is the core. And this layer is about 600 kilometers in radius. The core is made up of two parts, an inner core, which is solid, an outer core, which is liquid. The moon's source of heat is the core. The heat is generated by radioactive decay from the formation of the moon. However, over time, the core has been losing heat and cooling down. And as it cools down, it shrinks in size. And this basically creates a mismatch between the core and the mantle. The mismatch puts stress on the crust, which bends and breaks, forming faults. And these faults are not static but dynamic. They can slip and move, causing the surface of the moon to quake. These quakes are called moonquakes. The scientists behind the study used data from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter to observe the shrinking moon. The orbiter can take high-resolution images of the lunar surface, revealing the features and the details of the faults. And what did the images reveal, you ask? Well, they showed that the moon has shrunk by 150 feet in circumference over the past few 100 million years, as the core cooled by about 300 degrees Celsius. And what does the moon's shrinking even mean? Well, it has implications for the future of lunar exploration and colonization. The moonquakes caused by the faults could pose a threat to the safety and stability of any structures or equipment that human beings may build or deploy on the moon, especially in the South Polar region, which is a potential landing site. It is prone to strong and shallow moonquakes that could damage the spacecraft or even hurt the astronauts. And lastly, the shrinking of the moon reveals the dynamic and evolving nature of the natural satellite. It shows how the moon is not a dead and inert rock, but a living and active world in itself. And this shrinking can help us understand the history and future of the moon, as well as the history and future of the Earth-Moon system. And as we wrap the show tonight, let me ask you this. How do you like your cup of coffee? Flat white, a cuppa without milk, lots of sugar, plain black coffee, some hazelnut flavoring perhaps, or with chocolate? How about with some olive oil? Now, before you judge me for asking that question, this is not an imaginary drink I'm talking about. It actually exists out there. It is called the Starbucks Oleato. Basically, it is coffee infused with Partana extra virgin olive oil. Italy got to taste it last year, and then this week it hit the markets in North America. So why am I talking about it? Well, because of the reactions that it has got, with some talking about the laxative effect of the drink. You heard that right. There are several versions of the beverage, by the way, like the cafe latte, the golden foam cold brew, etc. Some consumers have complained about the new brew having a laxative effect. It's been called a alleged laxative by one user. There are a string of reactions talking about this effect. Have a look at this reaction, for example. That drink from Starbucks making my stomach speak. Or this one. Word to the wise, be careful with the Oleato Starbucks drink. I did not know. There's also been praise for the variation from those liking the flavor and the bold new combination. Now, mixing coffee with oil might or might not be your cup of tea or coffee, but we all know that olive oil has a plethora of health benefits. For instance, it is rich in antioxidants. In fact, for those of you who might not be aware, there is a Mediterranean custom that involves consuming a spoonful of olive oil every day. Also, mixing fat with coffee in the form of heavy cream or other variations is something that a lot of people like for their cuppa. In fact, some also mix coconut oil with their coffee. But what about mixing olive oil with coffee? Let me tell you what this study says. It highlighted how olive oil can be a softener if the amount consumed is more than the absorptive capacity of the small intestine. Basically, moderation is key. Also, there are so many versions of coffee out there now. I mean, who can forget the pumpkin spice latte? It was a reminder of the age-old pumpkin on pineapple debate. So it's all up to you. You do you. You choose your brew, whatever suits you and works for you. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Good night.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.